Story 1. Start reading into existentialism. It will help you realize we are never really this person or that person, but rather, in the words of Sartre, we are always in the process of becoming. This helps do away with the bad faith in finding myself, which so many of us feel we need to do, when in reality we always are in that process. So feeling lost is a state that will always come and go throughout life, just as much as feeling found or grounded will come and go. Story 2. Might not be the answer you are looking for. It seems that when I am alone with my thoughts at night, I cannot help but come back to who I am, no matter what facade I put on during the day. This keeps me from forgetting for weeks at a time, let alone years, and I think it is actually a healthy habit so that I do not lose touch with myself. Story 3. There's probably no real you that exists across time. That's just something you built up when you were younger to give yourself a stable identity and core values. The you now is just as real as the you then. We all adapt to our surroundings and change to make our lives easier. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you're unhappy with your life now, you can adapt by changing. You need to believe that, and you probably know it since it seems to be something you're afraid of. But this is the real you now, and you need to focus on the needs of that person, not some idealized phantom from the past. Story 4. Best advice I have is this. When we experience things, we make maps of what happened. We all have maps of our time in school, how people treat us, all of our experiences. We also make maps about other people. We make assumptions about others based on what we see or hear. We get maps from others about us too, especially friends and parents, what they tell us we are, what we think they see when they look at us, what we think they think about us. People tend to focus on maps and label themselves, pigeonhole themselves into roles and what they think they should do, feel, or be based on the maps that they have. You are not a map. You are a three-dimensional terrain of whatever beautiful biome you want to be. Don't stare at a map all day and forget to look up at what it really is. Edit. Thank you for the medals. New to Reddit, first I've gotten any. Also edit. Fix the typos. Thank you all for pointing that out. Story 5. I immigrated to the United States from Europe and got lost. Now my memories of my life in Germany are fading, but I remember being much happier with my job, hobbies, and friends, and only crying once or twice a year when something really sad happened. Now I cry once a week. I am thinking about going back. Story 6. Live alone. It forces you to decide what you like to eat, how you want to eat, and how you spend your downtime. It forces you to define who you are. Sometimes that's a fast food eating couch potato, but eventually that gets boring. Then is when you begin experimenting with other things like cooking, going out, and asking yourself, what do I want to do? When you learn who you are, you become confident. Story 7. I majored in film in college, and it wasn't until my senior year that I realized I hated the work culture of the industry and didn't want to do it. Film had been my whole life since I was about 13, and I had an existential crisis. I ended up finishing the degree I didn't want because I was so close. I moved 1,000 miles away after graduation. I have a job I love with amazing benefits, and they will even completely pay for me to go back to school if I want, so I might try that soon. Story 8. I literally just started to notice progress in my life 3 weeks ago. So time will tell if this is a true solution or a temporary one. I just started to try to care about things. I kept going to church, volunteering, trying to find new hobbies, and considering people to date. Eventually, I began to realize which kind of things and people I cared about. Within my friend group, I gradually started lowering my filter and saying more of what I thought, gauging reactions, and then, instead of changing my filter, I shifted who I would spend more time with. It really sounds trivial, and it is, but all you can really do is try to be yourself, even if you don't know who that is. If you're like me and don't know, decide who you want to be and start working towards being that person. Also, give that ideal some wiggle room to change as you make progress. Story 9. I stopped in my tracks, and instead of looking around for validation, I looked inside. There's a lot of people out there, all with a different opinion, and that's all it is, an opinion. They're all different, and you're never going to be good enough for all of them. The only person that has to live with you 24/7 is you. So the best thing you can do is be good enough for you. Be the person you think is a good person, make decisions that feel right to you, look in your heart, and make decisions based on how that makes you feel. At the end of the day, when life is over, you will do the dying. Nobody is going to die for you, so you might as well be the one that does the living too. So I just stopped looking at other people's opinions and started finding the answers in my own heart. Doing things that didn't make me a bit uncomfortable, just to make others accept me. You weren't put on this earth to be like others. You were put here so you could be you, find who you are. It's a lifelong journey, and I've found more of myself than I could ever hope for. I'm confident enough now that I don't care too much about what others think of the choices I make, since they're not the ones who have to live with the aftermath of those choices. I am. On top of that, if you behave a certain way, make certain choices based on what others want, but not really what you want, you'll attract more people who like those choices, more people who agree with the choices you didn't even agree with yourself. If you make the choices you want to make, do things your way, you'll attract more people who are like you, and you'll feel much better. This world is never going to become a better place if nobody is willing to stand out, if nobody is willing to change, if nobody is willing to be different regardless of the opinion of others. This is the end of my novel. Thank you for your patience. Story 10. I've actually felt like my younger self didn't know who I was. I was shy and still am at bars and in terms of dating, but never one to try and be outgoing with friends or start conversations or anything. Now I've danced in front of hundreds of people and announced on a microphone. I check dozens of people in at a hotel a day, so I'm always talking to someone new and do my best to make everyone smile. Just start caring about making yourself laugh instead of making others think you're cool or whatever. Don't be afraid to let out your inner dread wolf, my friend. Story 11. I had this feeling for all my life after puberty. There were these high ideals that I always maintained and couldn't live up to, mostly because they were about saving the world and unattainable things like that. I spent an absurd amount of my teenage years studying philosophy and religion rather than dealing with teenage social issues like my peers. Ever since I was a kid, I had this goofy side though. When I wasn't pulling my hair out reading about semiotics, I would write silly stories to make people laugh. When I went to college, things changed. I began exhibiting some really dangerous behavior patterns, especially for someone with a huge conscience like myself. The line between my public and private life got larger. I began feeling I could do no wrong. I don't really want to list some of the things I did here because of shame, but suffice it to say, you would have all hated college me. I'm gonna skip to the end and just say this all got worse until I woke up one day and all my lightheartedness was gone. I was working a high-paying, meaningless job. I cheated on everyone I dated and thrown away every romantic relationship, some very painfully. My life had become all about money, sex, and status. The biggest epiphany of my life was realizing two things. One, everyone goes through some form of this. We all try on different faces. If we find one that doesn't fit, we still tend to cling to it so that we don't have to change our current comfort level. This phase is normal and human. Two, I was bipolar. Manic. My post-puberty life was punctuated by periods of unbelievable energy and increasingly risky behavior. Put me on top, there were years where I had fans. I got up on stage and gave speeches and made people laugh and was the center of attention. And later it landed me in jail because the center cannot hold. But with that diagnosis, I finally was able to figure out my history and why I could never live up to those ideals. Because grandiosity is a textbook manic symptom too. These days, I don't push myself to do any more than love my family and enjoy the little things. I've lived more than most people do in a lifetime. I deserve a rest, at least for a little while. The answer is that the normal cycle is to lose yourself for a little while and then find yourself again. Everyone has an existential crisis to some degree. You have to trust that this is normal and your real self is always there waiting for your return. How you return, that will be unique. A death in the family, jail, overdose, failed relationship, financial loss, you name it. Something has to touch you deeply, and it will happen. In the natural course of things, we all take a big hit sooner or later. I don't like to generalize, but the 20s are a time when people tend to drift away from themselves. After that, it's really anyone's guess when you'll come back. But since you're asking this question, I say it will be sooner rather than later for you. Story 12. When one is so lost, so down the rabbit hole, surrounded by a fluid and dangerous environment, with things stripped away and reconstructed in response to others, how can one tell what is real at all, let alone what is truly you? Sometimes, With the slipstream whipping away artifice and tears, I get a glimpse. More, I see how autistic I am and how effectively adapted. How my mother shaped my life. How I have been loved. And how I have loved. But what is me? I seem to be a space where all this shows up, and I pretend, as does everyone, that some magic is actually in control. Story 13. I did realize it, and it's just life changes you. As you get older, experience new things, get new stresses or responsibilities, you kind of lose who you were and become someone new. Certain aspects change, but some things don't. The only part that is a bit, I guess, unsettling or empty is things that brought you so much joy you just find you don't care about anymore. It's harrowing, yes, but I just look forward to learning new things and seeing who I become. For example, I took up fishing. I have crippling obsessive-compulsive disorder, and the mere concept of it was off-putting to me, but now I love it. Took me over 30 years to try it, and now it's just part of who I am. Story 14. I moved every couple of years as a kid. It was always hard to remember who I really was since it felt like there were different versions of me depending on where I was living. It was like I wasn't really just one person, but a bunch of different versions of me. It's something I still struggle with, but spending more time alone has helped a lot. Also, I don't see myself moving again anytime soon since I'm in college. So I'm taking advantage of this time to really figure out my character. I didn't even realize how little I knew who I was until a friend asked about what my life was like before college, and I couldn't come up with just one answer. Instead of being my full self wherever I went, I adapted to the culture I was immersed in and then got ready to change again once we moved to the next place. It was hard as a kid, but I was always pretty happy no matter where I was, and now I have time to settle down a little bit. Story 15. My sister just taught me about a mental exercise to help you figure out what makes you you at the core. Imagine that you were born to a different set of parents in a different location, family, and had different life experiences. What parts of you would still be the same? This is your core self. We all have a core but have to put on layers as we get older and go through life's challenges. For me, I have always been playful, curious, mischievous, persuasive, imaginative, and a dreamer. My parents said that's just how I came out, and when I do things to feed these core parts of me as an adult, that's when I experience real joy in life. Story 16. By accepting that we are all a product of our environment, we understand that it's okay. We don't have to be some special individual snowflake who has come to be by some autonomous force. Who we are is ever-changing and largely dependent on context, on the people around us, and the society we exist in. Alan Watts discusses this in the book. We seldom realize, for example, that our most private thoughts and emotions are not actually our own. For we think in terms of languages and images which we did not invent, but which were given to us by society. Our social environment has this power just because we do not exist apart from a society. Society is our extended mind and body. Yet the very society from which the individual is inseparable is using its whole irresistible force to persuade the individual that he is indeed separate. Society, as we now know it, is therefore playing a game with self-contradictory rules. Story 17. It sounds like it would benefit you to speak to someone more qualified than the Reddit hive mind. It can be very beneficial in breaking down where complex feelings like this stem from. Best of luck. Story 18. It's amazing that almost 35,000 random people came here to partake in, observe, and learn from the community therapy session that's happening in this thread. I love the internet. Story 19. People are a combination of many different things. Our history, our situation, and our knowledge all change us and will continue to change us. I can say I am a brave person. I can also say I am cowardly. They are opposites, and yet I am both, depending on my situation and how I am feeling in the moment. People are not static. They are dynamic. We are all who we are in the moment. Who we are in the moment depends on a variety of different factors. But I am not who I have been, and I am not who I will be. I am me, and the only me that matters and the only one I truly am is right now. Am I irritable and short-tempered right now? Then that is who I am. Am I determined, motivated, and disciplined right now? Then I am that person. Who I was yesterday is not who I am today. And I will not be the same tomorrow, or even an hour from now. You are right now. Embracing it in this way gives me the ability to change who I am in the moment. I am a coward right now, but I do not want to be a coward. I want to be brave. And you realize you can be, because past you does not matter, present you does. If present you wants to be different, then be different. Chances are you will want to be a different person in the future, and that is okay. Humans are made to adapt. Look at things like horoscopes or zodiac signs. The descriptions are so vague that the people who believe in them partly buy into it because chances are they exhibit those qualities at least some of the time. Your zodiac sign says you are stubborn, courageous, and warm-hearted. You have probably been all of those things at some point. You most likely will never be those things all of the time, and you will probably show characteristics of all the other ones as well.